Peace be with us this hour of this day as we gather in this loving assembly of family and friends to say goodbye to Barry Edward Taylor. Today we gather to grieve Barry's death because he will not be part of our lives as he once was. And we gather to give thanks for the ways that his life made all of our lives better. Let us shed tears if tears come. But let us also remember that each of us must express our own feelings of loss in our own ways and in our own times. Let us not be afraid of the depth of our feelings, no matter what those feelings may be, knowing that they are but a reflection of what Barry's life meant to our own. Let us also not be afraid to turn to one another in the days ahead, because we need each other. Let us not hesitate to offer or accept a hand to help, an ear to listen, or a heart to care. When words fail to adequately express our sympathy, as they necessarily must, let us not hesitate to simply offer our silent witness, to show our support for those who loved and will miss Barry the most. Will you please stand for our first hymn this morning, that is 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness. Please be seated. The flaming chalice is the symbol of the Unitarian Universalist tradition, the tradition in which this congregation stands, a congregation which Barry was an active member for many years. We light this chalice this afternoon to remind us that we are gathered in a time and space made sacred by our love and grief, made holy by our values and commitments, the values and commitments that we hold as good, true, and beautiful. At this time, I'd like to invite Rachel, Jim, Drew, and Luke to come forward to light our chalice. At this time, we light this chalice to remind ourselves that life is a miracle, nothing less than a miracle, that flowers bloom every spring, that living thing begets living thing, that we human beings emerge again and again from grief to gratitude, from sadness to joy, from hopelessness to meaning. We light this chalice to remind ourselves that life is a miracle, nothing less than a miracle. Will you please be together with me now in the spirit of reflection, meditation, and prayer. Spirit of mystery, spirit of life, spirit of love, in which we live and move and have our being. We are grieving. There's an emptiness in our lives that wasn't there before. Among us today are those who have lost a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a friend. We are grieving today for Barry and for ourselves, for our own relationships with Barry. It is difficult to let go of one who was loved no matter how long or how short a life, especially perhaps if we were not given a chance to say all the things we wanted to say. The thank yous, the I'm sorry's, the I forgive yous, the I love yous, and the goodbyes. And so we lift up our hopes. We lift up our hopes for the healing of our own hearts, that our feelings of loss and grief will be smoothed by the achingly slow wisdom of time, the feelings of fond remembrance and deep gratitude for Barry's life. A life lived not without troubles, and like any life, a life not lived perfectly, but also a life lived with joy and gentleness amid blessings. We lift up our hopes that we may come to understand that in every life, no matter how long or how short, there is a completeness. And we lift up our hope that amidst our grief we will remember the preciousness of our own lives. We lift up our hope that we may remember that love is stronger than death, and that on the far side of grief, there is the possibility of new life for us all. Amen. Will you please stand as you are able for our next hymn, hymn number 1031, Open My Heart. Will you please stand as you're able? We have two readings this morning. Our first reading this morning is the 23rd Psalm from Hebrew Scripture. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still water. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for all of my days. Our second reading this morning is the poem Blackwater Woods by Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning to their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds, and every pond, no matter what its name, is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires in the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Barry Edward Taylor was born July 7, 1947 in upstate New York. From the time he was born until he left for college, he lived in Canton. His father was the local barber, and his mother was an elementary school teacher who taught every kid in Canton. And both of his parents were very involved in the local community. Barry was their second child. His sister Sue was 5 years older. Barry was a late talker, but once he started talking, he never stopped. When he started talking, he talked in full sentences. Growing up, Barry did everything. He was active and social. In high school, he played both on the high school football team and in the marching band. He played drums in a local dance band and used the money he made to buy a motorcycle. Barry grew up Presbyterian, but in Canton, the Presbyterian church was across the street from a Universalist church. Barry thought the people at the Universalist church were the mostly weird intellectuals from nearby St. Lawrence College, but he sometimes attended musical events in the church's basement. Barry thought about pursuing a career in music, but his high school chemistry teacher saw a lot of potential in Barry and said, "Do yourself a favor, go to college, study chemistry." Right before leaving for college, his older sister, Sue, died from complications from diabetes. It was a devastating loss for Barry, one from which he truly never fully recovered. Even during the last weeks of his life, he ruminated about it. Barry attended Fredonia University for his undergraduate degree before earning a PhD at Brown University. While an undergraduate student, he spent a year as an exchange student at the University of Bonn and traveled all over Europe. After returning to the United States, he married Linda, his high school sweetheart. Barry and Linda soon welcomed Jeremy into their lives, but sadly, their own marriage did not last. After receiving his PhD, Barry briefly considered pursuing a career in academia, but instead took a job with DuPont and worked for DuPont his entire career, earning several patents. That included spending 6 years living and working in Japan, and his favorite part of that experience was mentoring and nurturing younger chemists. Barry finally realized he was one of those weird intellectuals and began attending a Unitarian Universalist congregation, though he still very much identified as a liberal Christian. He once told me that he identified as a Christian Universalist at heart. He was active in congregations in Wilmington, Delaware, and Niagara, New York, before becoming a member of this congregation in 1998 after moving to Raleigh. Barry retired from DuPont so he could spend more time at his camp in northern New York, where he loved to spend time bathing in the lake, kayaking, and chatting it up with neighbors. It was here in this congregation that he met Lynn. Both had been previously married, Barry twice by this time, and they swore that they would never get married again. But after hearing some younger members here in this congregation, Shannon Sermons and Brent McCraven, talk glowingly about their recent wedding, Lynn and Barry decided to get married too, and were married in a ceremony here at UUFR, right here in this spot, officiated by the Reverend John Saxton in 2012. Barry and Lynn enjoyed the life they created together. They enjoyed traveling, and Lynn says they had 3 really great trips, including trips to Ireland and New Zealand and a Viking River cruise. Barry once complained to Lynn about some decisions being made here at UUFR, and Lynn, who had previously served as the board president, said that instead of just complaining, Barry should run for a board position. So he did. Barry rarely read all of the materials he was supposed to read before every board meeting, which annoyed other board members. But no matter what they were discussing, also asked really tough questions at every board meeting, which sometimes further annoyed other board members, but eventually gained him their begrudging respect. Barry often acted as the conscience of the board. Barry was later an active participant in a writing group and at the men's breakfast here at UUFR for many years. I remember the first time I met Barry. It was in May of 2019, before I had even officially begun my position in this congregation. I was visiting Raleigh to find a house for my family, and I was out in the front parking lot drinking coffee, waiting for a real estate agent to show up. And I find myself urgently needing to use the restroom. The front doors were locked, so I came downstairs to the downstairs doors and knocked. Barry answered, but only held open the door about 2 inches. I explained, "I'm the new minister. I need to use the restroom. Can I come in?" Barry looked at me and he said, "Could I see some ID?" And I only tell that story today because Barry insisted that I do. Barry's physical decline was exacerbated by the pandemic, and he was never able to be as physically active after the pandemic as he was before it. He moved to Brighton Gardens more than 2 years ago to get more support, but he also flourished there in many ways. Barry loved to get to know people and talk to people, and he was determined to make friends with everybody, even a few people who were determined not to be friends with him. What kind of a man was Barry Taylor? He deeply loved his family. He loved and was so proud of his son Jeremy, daughter-in-law Heidi, and his grandchildren Serena and Eric. Lynn was the love of his life, and her own daughters and grandchildren became like family to him. He was gregarious and loved talking with people about very silly subjects, like what it would be like to start a food fight at Brighton Gardens, as well as the big questions of life, which he often did with John Stewart. Even on the day he died, he had conversations with a dozen different people. He liked to laugh and even tease a little, though he would sometimes torture himself with self-recrimination if he said something he later deemed to be too sarcastic. He loved animals. When he met Lynn, he had 3 stray dogs and a cockatiel. When he was at Brighton Gardens, his favorite time was when puppies came to visit. He was a generous person and supported a dozen different environmental and animal welfare organizations. His reading interests were eclectic and even sometimes esoteric. But despite this, despite his significant educational and professional accomplishments, he still mostly identified with his working class roots. Like all of us, he wasn't a perfect person, but he was a good person with a good heart. He once wrote, "Let my legacy be my life, one well spent, full of kindness, compassion, and generosity toward others. Was it perfect enough? Like footprints in the sand, only the desert wind will know for certain." For all of these things, and so many more, he will be remembered. For all of these things, and so many more, he will be deeply missed. We'll now hear a remembrance from Megan.
Good morning. Today we gather to celebrate the life of Barry, a man whose kindness and thoughtfulness touched everyone around him. Barry had a gift for making people feel so special. He didn't remember just the birthdays or milestones. He remembered the little things that mattered most to each person. It was never about the grand gestures. It was about the quiet, meaningful ways that he showed he cared. For me, it was the river rat cheese curds and red wine, creating a love of curds. before I moved to Wisconsin and probably contributing to about 15 pounds of weight for my adult life. For Madison, my husband, it was manchego, cheese, and beer. Barry knew what brought us joy and always made sure it was around when we were. He made sure that we felt seen and loved in all those small but powerful ways. That was Barry, always paying attention and always giving from the heart. One of my favorite stories is about a firewood stand that Barry constructed. I showed up, and if anyone's met me, I'm pretty blunt and I'm an engineer. I took one look at it and I said, "That's not going to work." And it didn't. I was right. But that was one of the memories that Barry always had laughing for years, that he said this was one of the first encounters that he realized when he married Lynn, that it wasn't just Lynn that he got, it was his family. And that was one of the first Megan encounters that he said, "Oh Lord, what have I gotten myself into?" And then there were the pets. Barry loved with all of his heart. They weren't just pets to him, they were family. He had a way of connecting with them and understanding their quirks and loving them unconditionally. When Madison and I were first dating, we had Scratch, a beloved dog that was given a 50-50 chance of living. We knew we had to fight, and Barry slipped us much-needed contribution, saying he wanted Scratch to have her best chance for more years of unconditional love. That reflected the kind of love that Barry had. He was gentle, loyal, and full of warmth. He was more than a husband to my mother. He was her partner, her friend, and her greatest supporter. Together, they built a life full of love, laughter, and shared moments that live on in our hearts. Barry's legacy is one of generosity, thoughtfulness, and love. He taught us that the simplest acts, remembering, caring, and showing up, are what truly matter. And as we say goodbye, we carry those lessons with us, honoring him by living the same kindness that he gave so freely. Barry, thank you for everything. You will be deeply missed but never forgotten.
Thank you. We'll now hear from Chris Wise.
Good morning. For a number of years, I was a regular up here. I was a worship associate. And one of the gimmicks, one of the tricks that you learn of the trade is to find someone to talk to. And right over there would be Barry. And he would nod his head and smile, and maybe after the service, tell me how I could have told that poem or that story a little better. I just want to tell you just one, well, maybe two, or maybe a story from Barry's time on the board of directors that's already been mentioned. And I don't think you can imagine a greater challenge to Unitarian Universalist values than to have someone sleeping on our porch right out there. And that's a challenge. And when it happened, Barry stepped up to the plate, so to speak, and engaged with that visitor, and he worked very, very hard through countless conversations and negotiations to try a true home for that stranger on our doorstep. And that wasn't easy, since that particular person saw himself as a Christian prophet. And he reveled in preaching to anyone who happened to be walking by. And that was a bit of a challenge for Barry as well, because he was a member of our Unitarian Universalist community. And in my experience with him, I would describe him as probably a closer member of the various Buddhist, Taoist, and humanist branches of Unitarian Universalism, and maybe a little Confucianism, Shintoism, a little Zoroastrianism, a little yogic philosophy on the side, If I left anything out, Lynn, probably a few more. But Barry did the work, and on our behalf, found a place other than the front porch out there. And in the end, our visitor ended up in a slightly better place and was at least out of the weather. As been mentioned, Barry and I served on the, Barry served on the board of directors at the same time that I did. And contrary to what those of you who know me might think, we did not use Robert's Rules of Order to run our meetings. Instead, we strove for consensus. And getting, as you might have also imagined, getting 7 UUs to agree to anything in consensus was a challenge. And Barry's sense of justice and compassion often challenged our thinking, and I think it's fair to say, as was already been mentioned, that at least during his time, he was something of the conscience of our board. But I must also admit, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to stand up today, is that there were times that I got a bit exasperated. I would think we got the board together. This is going to work. And I would look around the room and notice Barry's body. So I would sigh and say, okay, what do you got to say? And he would bring up something almost inevitably that was important, and almost inevitably that we just had to listen to. Now, we did not always follow his lead, and for the next several years, he would point out to me that we had not followed his lead. And I'm here to tell you, sometimes he was right. But I'd also remember Barry noodling at the piano, telling stories at the men's breakfast, and the intense debate on the relative merits of gas-powered leaf blowers, electric-powered leaf blowers, or just rakes. We spent a lot of time on that, and I don't think we ever quite resolved it. Barry's a man of kindness, courage, and integrity. Our community was the better for it, and I just want to thank him for his contributions.
Thank you, Chris. I hope many more of you will share memories of Barry and stories about Barry with Lynn and other family members and with one another at the reception after the service. But now, let's spend a few moments in shared silence and stillness, simply reflecting on what Barry's life meant to our own life and what our own lives meant to his. Our closing hymn this morning is number 1064, Blue Boat Home. Will you please stand as you're able? Immediately following the service, all are invited to attend. Following the interment, there will be a reception in Founders Hall, which is also on our lower level. The easiest way to reach our memorial garden is to exit our front doors and simply turn to the right. If you have mobility challenges, feel free to take the elevator to our lower level. But now is the time to prepare ourselves for the leaving. We give thanks for the life of Barry Taylor. We give thanks that he lived. We give thanks for the ways that he made our own lives fuller and our world a better place to live. We hold in our hearts those who loved Barry the most and feel his loss the most. We lift up our hope that in the coming days, life may grant them acceptance and peace. As we leave this place of worship now, may we do so with ever more love for ourselves and others, with ever more awe and gratitude for this precious gift of life that we share among ourselves today, with ever more peace in our hearts, and with ever more hope for our own lives and this world we share. Amen.